Africa is a continent that is well known for its abundance of fascinating animals. But of the animals that call this continent home, bears are not on the list and have not been on this list since the extinction of the Atlas bear. But in the highlands of western Kenya, there is said to be a fierce creature that resembles a bear in description and is said to terrorize the people of the region. Welcome to Cryptid Corner, the series all things cryptids, and today we are going to look into the Nandi bear. In the western regions of Kenya, many rolling hills, plateaus, and valleys can be found bordering Uganda and Lake Victoria. This region is also home to many forested areas as well. However, British colonialism and agricultural practices have led to a trend of deforestation that continues into this day, reducing the range of the montane forests over time. Given the variety of geographic features and the biomes in this region of Kenya is home to many of Africa's most iconic animals, and many peoples, such as the Nandi people, have called this region home for ages, inhabiting the highlands and rift valleys of the region. And they, along with the tribes all around this region, have all spoken of monstrous creatures that even the most seasoned hunters would turn down without a second thought. The Nandi bear is a cryptid well known from a series of sightings in the early 1900s, but despite its name, it is not believed that all of these sightings were of a bear-like animal. You see, the Nandi bear is a composite cryptid, being kind of an umbrella term to refer to a series of sightings of at least two separate animals. And some of these sightings refer to it being like a bear, while others describe giant hyenas, and other reports even describe them as giant primates like baboons. Many common descriptions of the Nandi bear refer to them as large furry animals with coloration ranging from a tawny brown to a blackish brown, being roughly 1.5 feet long and about 1 to 5 feet tall at the shoulders, with sloped hyena-like posture. It is said to have a large head and a bear-like snout with powerful bite, along with rounded ears, small tails, and massive paws, all classic bear staple traits. Many cryptids that have been known by the many groups of East Africa have been lumped in with this Nandi bear, with creatures such as the Cordello, Chivuvere, Nkampit, Ngulko, Keret, Chemosit, Duba, Nyangao, the Umbende beast, and giant forest hyena, all being names that are attributed to the Nandi bear either as an alternative name or as an already pre-existing cryptid in local folklore that was just kind of lumped in with all of these. So with all of these being lumped into one creature, it gets pretty difficult to believe all of them being the result of a singular creature, especially across different environments. As you'll see shortly, the Nandi bear is given its title from the early 1900s sightings of Jeffrey Williams and G.W. Hicks, while Africa was still under European control, with many local tales kind of being lumped in to try to best fit a narrative. But ultimately, this led to more confusion, with it turning into a game of connect the dots with several different creatures applying to different sightings. Given us some of the wildest theories regarding what these creatures could be, but you're gonna have to stick around for that, and do, because it's pretty wild. But in the meantime, let's get into those sightings. The oldest known mention of the Nandi bear stems from a 1905 report from British colonel and ornithologist Richard Meinertzhagen, who was told by the Nandi people that large bear-like animals were common when they first moved into the region sometime in the early 1600s. They lived in moderate numbers, but when a disease outbreak had affected many of their prey animals in the area, they were pushed to the brink of extinction and seemingly never recovered since. Due to these desperate conditions, Nandi bears had resorted to devouring the natives of the region, crushing their heads with their powerful bites. In 1905, during the Nandi expedition of the OS and Gishu, Jeffrey Williams and his cousin would spot what he described as a bear sitting down by a rock, just chilling, until he would get spooked and forced to scuttle off. Assholes. Sometime around this encounter, the Chivuvere was said to have broke into a hut and devoured everyone inside, leading to people burning the hut and killing the beast. In the early 1910s, the region was being scoped out for the construction of the Amgadi Railway, which led to a great volume of sightings and ultimately generated widespread interest in the Nandi bear, starting with a Dutch boy who encountered a large animal in the Kura Plains. The boy was shown a animal book to help identify whatever he saw, with his match for the animal being none other than a bear. During the construction of this railway, the crew would report tracks being found near the railway, with one of them being sketched still existing. In 1912, Major Tolson would encounter a shaggy, black furred animal with a bear like gait that was busting into the kitchen, with this creature being spotted tailing the crew just a few days before this encounter. In the March of 1913, two Nandi bear sightings would occur, with one of them coming from the district commissioner of Eldoret, N.E.F. Corbett, with him spotting it at a stream near Tolson's farm. He briefly saw a large creature with reddish brown fur that was larger than a hyena, and it was getting a drink of water until it vanished into the brush, probably after noticing him. Around the same time, G.W. Hicks was traveling on a motor trolley in the morning when, 50 yards away, he would spot what appeared to be a hyena. But as he got closer, he noticed that something was off about it. What he saw did not resemble any hyena that he knew of. Standing as large as a lion with a shaggy brown fur, a blackish mane, and a stubby body with short ears and a very small tail. After this encounter, a servant named Mr. Archibald would spot a similar creature, with it staring him down and even rearing up on hind legs similar to a bear. In 1914, the forested region of Kapsawar, a Nandi bear would pounce on what it thought was a person outside of their hut, only to realize that it had fell for a decoy before being fired upon by several villagers. In Uganda, a farmer named K.R. Williams would reportedly find the corpse of a Nandi bear that had eaten some poisoned bait meant for hyenas, describing it looking nothing like a hyena and more like a bear. He would eventually return to retrieve the corpse, only to find that it had been dragged away, most likely by actual hyenas. A Nandi person claimed that a Nandi bear had been shot and poisoned with arrows around this time as well, which resembled a large canine like creature that sat like a monkey. Sometime prior to 1918, a creature would be deemed responsible for goats and sheep being abducted and some being killed. Although some were alive, there were some that were not as fortunate, with their heads being crushed with immense force. Eventually, the villagers would find a large spotted hyena, who had a tendency of aiming for the heads of its prey, although it is debatable if this was the sole culprit of the attacks. Near the Kipansol River, a Nandi bear was spotted by Charles Stoneham and his friends, with the creature fleeing before he could get out his rifle. In July of 1923, an American sportsman named J. Herman Berg would shoot a creature described as a giant man eating hyena without the signature slope posture that hyenas are known for. In 1925, William Hitchens was sent to track down a man eating beast that had wreaked havoc upon a village, devouring several villagers. During the night, Hitchens' tent would be destroyed by a massive creature he believed to be the same thing, that let out a roar that left the seasoned hunter frozen in fear, as the beast made off with his dog into the night. In the same year, a lion sized hyena was brought down in Tuso, but not after 10 spear thrusts from the hunters. 2 years later, a giant hyena had killed 12 cattle near Tuso. In 1930s, a bear-like animal was spotted by District Commissioner of Kapsabet, Captain F.D. Hislop, who was certain that the creature couldn't have been a hyena or a baboon, but instead said that it looked like a bear. In 1936, a large lynx-like creature with a mahogany-colored coat was said to roam the Mao forest, with several sightings and even reported remains of the animal being found. In 1941, an officer stationed in Nanyuki would spot what he thought to be a Nandi bear in his headlights, describing it as a heavily built bear-like animal with a shaggy hindquarters. In the late 50s, large hyenas that were said to be gray brown fur with white tips and black spots were shot at the Chamomi Tea estate, but were mostly left to just rot with only some scattered remains remaining. In 1962, an animal said to be double the size of a spotted hyena was shot by the father of Jamie McLeod, a hunter who would refer to them as giant forest hyenas and would tell everything he knew regarding this encounter to cryptozoologist Carl Schuker. In 1967, an animal about the size of a spotted hyena was seen by Barry Gamer. That's a pretty epic name, who described it as being a long-haired hyena with a short nose while driving in Churmangi Hills late at night. In 1981, at the same estate where those prior hyenas were shot in the 50s, giant hyena-like animals were seen again. But according to the witnesses, this time, whatever it was not a hyena. And in February of 1998, engineer Dennis Burnett would be driving along the Koru Kisumu Road with his wife while a large animal would cross the road. The couple believed it to be a bear at first, given the sheer size of the animal, but upon further examination, they would deem it to be a gargantuan hyena, looking like a particularly shaggy striped hyena. Now, given how extensive this list of sightings is, just what could the true culprit, or rather culprits, be? Here on Cryptid Corner, we're all about taking the wildest and most fascinating explanations first and going down the list. And the Nandi bear has perhaps one of the most interesting lists of culprits I've ever seen, and probably the longest one that I've covered. And to start off with not only the most bizarre culprit on this list, but perhaps the weirdest megafaunal mammal ever, with the Nandi bear potentially being a surviving calicophere. Calicopheres are an extinct group of mammals that can best be described as gorilla horses, as they are close relatives to horses, rhinos, and tapirs, being ungulates, but unlike other ungulates, calicopheres do not have hooves, but instead possess claws. Due to this, calicopheres would walk on their knuckles similar to gorillas and ground sloths, with long forelimbs and shorter hind limbs, giving them a very sloped posture. Despite being extinct now, calicopheres were quite successful in the past, living from the Middle Eocene about 46 million years ago up until the early Pleistocene around a million years ago, and holding ranges across Eurasia, North America, and most importantly for this video, Africa. Calicopheres preferred forested environments and savannas, pulling down tree branches with their clawed limbs and utilizing their giraffe-like tongues to feast upon leaves, fruits, and perhaps some of the bark on the side. But due to shifts in the climate, calicopheres couldn't hold on much longer, with Nestoriferium, which was the most recently dated calicophere, going extinct around 700,000 years ago, with some holdout populations surviving in Myanmar and China. Calicopheres also came in a variety of different sizes, with the bear size estimates being easily matched with a surviving calicophere. The calicophere hypothesis was first brought up by Charles William Andrews back in the 20s, when not much was known about these horse, gorilla, sloth things, and with much of the narrative around Africa at the time still being painted by Europeans as a primitive dark continent that had ancient creatures like dinosaurs and stuff roaming in the jungles. The lead reason for a calicophere hypothesis being dropped is a simple flaw that calicopheres were herbivorous, and were most likely not going out of their way to break into huts and crush the heads of cattle. Although, you could argue that calicophere sightings were only the inspiration of the Nandi bear just off of their appearance, with people filling in the gaps, or perhaps they were a little aggressive. And like other ungulates, it is likely that they did eat meat in extremely dire circumstances, like birds, snakes, and carrion, when things got extremely dire. Another more likely extinct animal that is thought to resemble the Nandi bear was the Dinopithecus, a massive primate that could be found in Ethiopia and in South Africa. Dinopithecus was similar to baboons in appearance, except about double the size, and were likely omnivorous generalists like their living relatives. But given their size, it is likely that they used their size to get what they wanted more often than not, with fossil remains showing many clashes between Dinopithecus and early human ancestors, like Australopithecus, Homo erectus, and perhaps even some modern humans while they were on their way out. Dinopithecus is thought to have gone extinct around 11,000 years ago due to climate change and, for once, not human predation. Perhaps aspects of the baboon like cryptids and legends in the area could have been passed down from some of the last Dinopithecus encounters, but I think it is pretty unlikely that Dinopithecus survived into current day, and with, just with baboons just out competing them and out niching them. And many of the reports that we covered rule out baboons specifically. But even if they described a giant baboon, though, isn't it more likely that they just saw a giant baboon? Like, I mean, a giant baboon cryptid doesn't have to be a Dinopithecus, it could be one or the other. But exploring the possibility of the Nandi bear being a legitimate bear, it is important to look into Africa's history with bears. You see, bears seem to dominate just about every environment you put them in, with a bizarre exception being Africa. The most recent bear to live in Africa was the Atlas bear, a smaller subspecies of brown bear that lived around the Atlas Mountains in the northernmost regions of Africa, far from Kenya. But 11 million years ago, massive bears, known as Agriotherium, that spanned massive territories, including Africa, being as far down south as South Africa. The Agriotherium africanum was the largest bear in Africa, reaching sizes estimated to be around 1,700 pounds in lengths of up to 9 feet, on par with modern polar bears. This size was thought to be used to scare off predators from their kills, stealing their meat and grazing and not hunting as often as modern bears do, indicated by their weaker forelimbs. These bears would go extinct around 2 million years ago, most likely due to climate change and getting outcompeted by other bear species outside of Africa, with Africanum just not being able to carry on in the changing African landscape. The largest problem that I have with the Nandi bear being an Agriotherium is just the size, as the Nandi bear is usually around like the size of a small grizzly or a black bear or a lion, which is far smaller than these giants from the Miocene. Although, to better support this theory, Arctotherium, the short-faced bears of South America, were once some of the largest bears to walk the earth, but they struggle to keep up with climate change. But as a response to these environmental pressures, many of the most recent Arctotherium species had downscaled in size and adopted diets to better increase their chances of survival, such as the wingay, who became more herbivorous and was about the size of a spectacled bear, being much smaller than their giant ancestors. Perhaps Agriotherium bears had downscaled in a similar manner, but retained a little bit more of a predatory niche, somewhat unlike these bears. But at the same time, I feel it is more likely that this is an undiscovered and undescribed subspecies of brown bear, or perhaps even some escaped bears from local zoos. Most of these sightings had occurred near mountains and forests, which is a place where bears thrive. And given the success of the Atlas bear in their range, perhaps a population of brown bears had survived in the Kenyan highlands, clashing with hyenas and Nandi hunters for food. Regarding giant hyenas, being the most commonly mentioned hypothesis of the Nandi bear, prehistoric hyenas such as Pachycrocuta had been referenced as culprits due to their size. Pachycrocuta brevirostris, also known as the short-faced hyena, is the largest species of hyena that we know of, standing at about 39 inches at the shoulders and weighing up to 240 pounds, about the size of a lion. The short-faced hyena emerged 5 million years ago and spanned a colossal territory from southern Africa into Spain and England and Europe and as far into eastern Asia, living in cackles similar to modern hyenas. Given the size of these giant hyenas and them traveling in big packs, it is thought that they preferred ambush hunting and stealth kills, similar to more stereotypical hyena depictions, as they were not as well designed for pursuit hunting. And found through the remains of Homo erectus, the short faced hyena seemingly went after early humans quite a bit, either as prey or through scavenging or through territorial clashes, with many fossils being riddled with Pachycrocuta bite marks that were once thought to be signs of cannibalism. These hyenas went extinct around 400,000 years ago, mainly due to climate change and the extinction of the Meganterion, a saber-toothed cat that would routinely have its kills stolen by short-faced hyenas. Given how long ago these hyenas went extinct, I think it is unlikely that they are responsible for Nandi bear sightings, although I am not as willing to entirely rule them out as I would other prehistoric areas. The largest problem I'd have with them is them being outcompeted by spotted hyenas. And on that note, let's explore the more likely explanations. I personally think that a bulk of these encounters stem from hyena sightings of peculiarly large individuals. Spotted hyenas can obtain weights of around 200 pounds and lengths of about 5 feet in Zambia, which seems about the average size of a lot of these Nandi bear encounters. And regarding encounters from Europeans, I feel like this entirely makes sense. But regarding local encounters of people who have been in this area for a very long time, if not their whole lives, this seems pretty unlikely. People in the area are more than familiar with hyenas, so even unusually large individuals or some misshapen ones wouldn't be anything out of the ordinary enough to refer to them as entirely new creatures. And it is also possible that these sightings are sightings of unknown populations of brown hyenas, who are not native to Kenya, but do fit a lot of the descriptions of the Nandi bear. Exceedingly large aardvarks and honey badgers are also thought to be some potential inspirations for the Nandi bear, with the print sketched by Schindler being thought to have been the result of two honey badger prints on top of each other. But you've probably been wondering, what's up with all these reports of kills? If there's been all these kills, shouldn't there be some remains left behind? Well, yeah, they were found and they were even sent to museums. But conveniently, they all went missing when en route to their location. And whatever remains are analyzed, they always tend to just be hyena sightings. So there is a likelihood that a lot of these are just hoaxes or legends meant to fool people. But regarding a lot of the sightings, I do think that the bulk of them are hyenas and perhaps some baboons. The Nandi bear is a cryptid of many faces, much to the detriment of this case. But even though that makes this cryptid hard to nail down, it does lead us to look into many extinct megafauna from not that long ago. Personally, I believe that the Nandi bear is an amalgamation of hyena and baboon sightings, of exceedingly large individuals, along with potential undiscovered species of brown bears possibly living in the hills of western Kenya. And although gorilla horses, giant baboons, African polar bears, and ancient lion sized hyenas are fascinating to look at, I doubt that they are living in the now deforested regions that once whispered of the Nandi bear. But I'd love to be wrong. After all, giant forest hogs, which were thought to have been cryptids for over 300 years, can be found in this region. But one thing is certain, and that is that these woods have something large and dangerous lurking within them, perhaps lurking to this very day. But hopefully it stays at bay due to the many hunters that brought down its distant relatives. And that's going to do it for the Nandi bear. Thank you all for watching. This was quite a long read. Like, this was just such a massive list of sightings and explanations. It was really cool to look at all of the different things that it could have been. But yeah, this was really cool to get back to doing. Back from winter break. Happy New Year. This should be going up on New Year's Eve. Wait, actually, no. New Year's Eve is the 31st, right? Still Happy New Year's regardless. You're given a Happy New Year's by me and you're gonna like it, damn it. But thank you all for watching. You know, I've been looking into this topic for quite a bit. It's pretty interesting, but I do have a video planned for Thursday, and I'm thinking I'm gonna do something a little different this time around. You also might have noticed the new mic. Got a new mic here. I still got to tweak around with the settings to make it sound perfect, but hey, we do got it upgrade. Doing good. All things going well, and I hope you had a good holidays. I hope you had a good New Year. And if you're watching this way off in the future, a lot of that means nothing, but thank you all for watching regardless. Make sure to leave a like if you like the video. Make sure to comment down below what you thought and what you want to see in the next Cryptid Corner. Make sure to subscribe and ring that bell for more, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you and goodbye.